Top 6 vitamins that lower bad cholesterol. Imagine waking up one day feeling perfectly fine, no pain, no obvious warning signs, and then weeks later, you're told you have dangerously high cholesterol. It's not far-fetched. In fact, high cholesterol, especially elevated levels of LDL or bad cholesterol, is often called a silent killer because it creeps up without symptoms and quietly raises your risk for heart attacks, strokes, and even peripheral artery disease. According to the World Health Organization, raised cholesterol is estimated to cause 2.6 million deaths globally each year. What's worse, nearly 40% of adults worldwide have elevated cholesterol, but most don't even know it. And when it finally shows up in a blood test, the damage has often already begun. The real danger lies in the fact that LDL cholesterol doesn't just float harmlessly through your blood. It sticks to the walls of your arteries, forms plaque, and narrows those vital vessels like rust inside an old water pipe. Over time, this restricts blood flow and forces your heart to work harder. If that plaque suddenly ruptures, it can lead to a clot and result in a heart attack or stroke, sometimes with no second chance. That's why managing cholesterol early on, preferably with natural methods before resorting to heavy medications, is not just smart, but life-saving. Today, we're exploring 6 powerhouse vitamins that have been scientifically shown to help lower LDL cholesterol. Let's break them down one by one. First up is vitamin B3, more commonly known as niacin. This isn't just another trendy supplement. Niacin has been studied for decades and has stood the test of time when it comes to heart health. It was actually first used back in the 1950s to help reduce cholesterol levels, and since then, it's been one of the most extensively researched vitamins in cardiovascular medicine. So what makes it so effective? Niacin works by targeting your liver, the place where most of your cholesterol is produced. Specifically, it slows down the production of very low-density lipoprotein, or VLDL. Why does that matter? Because VLDL is like the building block of LDL, which is the so-called bad cholesterol. When your liver makes less VLDL, you naturally end up with lower LDL in your bloodstream. But it doesn't stop there. Niacin also lowers triglycerides, those other fatty substances that travel through your blood and contribute to arterial plaque. Plus, niacin boosts HDL, the good cholesterol, which helps sweep excess fats away from the arteries and back to the liver for processing. That's a triple benefit: less LDL, less triglycerides, and more HDL. The research behind niacin is impressive. One of the most well-known studies is the Coronary Drug Project, which began in the late 1960s and followed over 8,000 men with a history of heart disease. This long-term study found that niacin therapy reduced non-fatal heart attacks by 27% over 5 years. And get this, 15 years after the study ended, the same group that had taken niacin showed an 11% lower overall mortality rate. That's huge. Another study, the AMHI trial, confirmed that niacin increases HDL levels significantly by up to 35%, while also reducing LDL and triglycerides. While that particular study raised questions about combining niacin with statins, it still validated niacin's unique ability to improve the lipid profile on its own. So, how much do you need to see these benefits? Most studies use doses ranging from 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams per day. However, these are therapeutic doses that should always be taken under medical supervision. High-dose niacin can cause skin flushing, a warm, tingling sensation that's harmless but can be uncomfortable. There's also a risk of liver toxicity if used improperly, so it's really important not to self-medicate. You can get small amounts of niacin from foods like chicken, turkey, tuna, mushrooms, and peanuts. But to actually shift your cholesterol numbers, food alone usually isn't enough. You'll need to supplement. And here's a quick tip. There's a form called extended-release niacin that can help reduce flushing while still delivering results. Still, this should only be used under a doctor's care, especially for people with diabetes or liver conditions. Next, let's talk about vitamin B5, or Pantethine, which is the active form of pantothenic acid. Pantethine might not be as widely known as niacin, but it's definitely one of the most intriguing natural compounds when it comes to supporting healthy cholesterol levels. It's actually a derivative of vitamin B5, also known as pantothenic acid, but it has a much more powerful effect on lipid metabolism. What sets pantethine apart is its role in enhancing the activity of coenzyme A, a vital enzyme involved in the breakdown and utilization of fats. Think of coenzyme A as the engine in your body's fat-burning machinery, and pantethine is like the premium fuel that makes that engine run smoother and faster. When pantethine increases coenzyme A activity, your body becomes more efficient at metabolizing fatty acids. This means fats are broken down more effectively and are less likely to be stored or converted into cholesterol in the liver. The result? A natural reduction in the production of low-density lipoprotein, LDL, which we often refer to as the bad cholesterol. By helping your body use fats for energy rather than letting them build up in your bloodstream, pantethine supports a cleaner, healthier lipid profile. Scientific research has been quite promising. In one notable double-masked, placebo-controlled study, participants who took 600 to 900 milligrams of pantethine daily for 4 to 8 weeks saw their LDL cholesterol drop by up to 20%. Triglyceride levels were also reduced, and HDL, the good cholesterol, showed mild improvement. What's especially attractive about pantethine is how it manages to deliver these benefits without the side effects commonly associated with other lipid-lowering supplements, such as the skin flushing that often comes with high-dose niacin. That makes pantethine a great option for people looking for a more comfortable, sustainable way to manage their cholesterol over the long haul. As for how to include it in your daily routine, therapeutic doses typically range between 600 and 900 milligrams per day, usually split into 2 doses. This helps maintain steady levels in your system throughout the day. While pantethine is found in small amounts in foods like meat, liver, whole grains, and avocados, those dietary sources don't come close to the amounts needed to significantly impact cholesterol levels. So if you're looking for real change, a high-quality supplement is the way to go. Now, you might not think of vitamin D when it comes to cholesterol, but this one is a bit of an undercover agent. Vitamin D might not be the first nutrient that comes to mind when thinking about cholesterol, but it plays a surprisingly important behind-the-scenes role in keeping your lipid profile in check. It's not a direct LDL-lowering powerhouse like niacin or pantethine, but what it does is equally critical. It influences the hormonal and metabolic systems that regulate how cholesterol behaves in the body. The fascinating part? A growing number of studies are showing that low vitamin D levels are frequently linked with higher levels of LDL cholesterol, elevated triglycerides, and increased inflammation, all of which are key players in the development of heart disease. The connection lies largely in how vitamin D impacts insulin sensitivity and systemic inflammation. When you're deficient in vitamin D, your body becomes more insulin resistant. That might not sound like a big deal at first, but insulin resistance is a major contributor to poor lipid metabolism. It leads to elevated blood sugar levels, which in turn signal the liver to produce more VLDL, very low-density lipoprotein, which then turns into LDL cholesterol in your bloodstream. So, when your vitamin D levels are low, you're essentially creating the perfect storm for high LDL and triglyceride buildup. It's like your body is trying to store fat rather than burn it. One observational study involving over 4,000 participants found that individuals with sufficient vitamin D levels had significantly lower LDL cholesterol compared to those who were deficient. The same study also highlighted a correlation between optimal vitamin D status and lower levels of C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation associated with cardiovascular disease. This means vitamin D may help tame the underlying inflammation that contributes to arterial plaque buildup, a hidden benefit that often goes unnoticed. So, how much do you actually need? Most adults do well with 1,000 to 2,000 IU per day, though some individuals with known deficiencies may require higher doses, monitored by a healthcare provider. You can get vitamin D from fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, as well as from egg yolks and fortified dairy products. But let's be honest, it's tough to get enough from food alone, especially if your levels are already low. That's where supplementation often becomes necessary. Another fascinating nutrient in the cholesterol story is vitamin E, particularly in the form of tocotrienols. Tocotrienols might not be a household name yet, but they're one of the most exciting discoveries in the field of natural cholesterol support, and they come with a fascinating backstory. Most people are familiar with vitamin E as alpha-tocopherol, the common form found in supplements and fortified foods. But vitamin E is actually a family of 8 compounds, 4 tocopherols and 4 tocotrienols. While alpha-tocopherol has long dominated the spotlight, it's the lesser-known tocotrienols that are stealing the show when it comes to cardiovascular health, especially their ability to lower LDL cholesterol naturally and gently. What makes tocotrienols so effective is their ability to inhibit an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase. If that name sounds familiar, it's because this is the same enzyme that statin drugs block to lower cholesterol production in the liver. But here's the twist. Tocotrienols suppress this enzyme in a more nuanced, less aggressive way, making them an appealing alternative for people who want to manage their cholesterol levels without the side effects that sometimes come with prescription statins. Unlike statins, which can cause muscle pain, liver strain, or fatigue in some users, tocotrienols are generally well tolerated and offer antioxidant benefits to boot. The evidence behind them is promising. One randomized, placebo-controlled study showed that taking 200 to 300 milligrams of tocotrienol-rich fraction daily could lower LDL cholesterol levels by up to 15% over a few months. Even more compelling, participants in the study also experienced a drop in oxidative stress markers, indicators of cellular damage caused by free radicals. Since oxidative stress is a key factor in the development of atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, this dual action makes tocotrienols especially valuable in the long-term protection of heart health. Now let's talk sources. Tocotrienols are found in small amounts in certain plant oils. Palm oil, rice bran oil, and annatto seed are among the richest sources. However, the amount you'd need to consume to reach therapeutic levels would be impractical from food alone, which is why high-quality supplements are the preferred option for most people. Annatto-derived tocotrienols, in particular, are considered potent and are free from alpha-tocopherol, which, in high amounts, may interfere with tocotrienol absorption. The standard dosage for tocotrienol supplements is usually between 200 and 300 milligrams per day, preferably taken with meals that contain some fat to aid absorption. Since they're fat-soluble compounds, the body absorbs them more effectively alongside dietary fats. Let's shift gears to vitamin C, which isn't just for colds. Vitamin C often gets typecast as the cold-fighting vitamin, but in reality, it's doing a lot more behind the scenes, especially when it comes to cholesterol. While it might not slam LDL cholesterol down like some of the heavier hitters, its role in protecting the cardiovascular system is subtle, consistent, and surprisingly powerful. One of its biggest contributions lies in preventing the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, a process that transforms LDL particles from mildly problematic to dangerously sticky and inflammatory. Here's the deal. LDL by itself isn't the villain. It's oxidized LDL that causes the most trouble. When these particles get oxidized by free radicals in the bloodstream, they become far more likely to adhere to the walls of your arteries. Over time, this sets the stage for plaque buildup, atherosclerosis, and ultimately heart attacks or strokes. Vitamin C steps in as a potent antioxidant, neutralizing those free radicals before they can oxidize LDL. Think of it as a protective shield around your blood vessels, keeping things smooth and less sticky. But the benefits don't stop there. Vitamin C also plays a key role in cholesterol elimination through bile acid synthesis. The liver converts cholesterol into bile acids, which are then secreted into the digestive tract and either reabsorbed or excreted. Vitamin C acts as a cofactor in this conversion process, helping the body transform more cholesterol into bile acids, thus reducing circulating cholesterol levels. This means you're not just moving cholesterol around. You're actively helping your body get rid of the excess. Several clinical trials back up these effects. In studies where participants were given between 500 and 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C daily for several weeks, researchers consistently noted modest but meaningful reductions in LDL cholesterol, typically around 7% to 10%, and even more notable drops in triglyceride levels. These changes might not sound dramatic at first glance. Still, over time, even small reductions in LDL and triglycerides can significantly lower cardiovascular risk, especially when paired with other healthy habits. From a dietary perspective, it's not hard to boost your intake naturally. Oranges, strawberries, bell peppers, kiwi, and broccoli are all excellent sources. But vitamin C is water-soluble and easily lost through cooking, so getting a steady, therapeutic dose often means turning to supplements. Most people can safely take 500 to 1,000 milligrams per day, and it's generally very well tolerated. Just be cautious with higher doses, as more than 2,000 milligrams daily can sometimes lead to digestive discomfort or kidney stones in predisposed individuals. Another interesting tip: vitamin C works even better when it teams up with other antioxidants. When combined with vitamin E, for example, their effects on protecting LDL particles from oxidation are enhanced. Polyphenol from green tea or berries can also synergize with vitamin C, creating a broader shield against oxidative damage. Finally, we can't overlook vitamin K2, especially in the form of menaquinone, 7-7-Malawian-Quatches. Vitamin K2 might not get as much attention as other heart-friendly nutrients. Still, it plays a fascinating and crucial role in protecting your arteries from the silent damage that cholesterol can trigger over time. Most people know vitamin K1 as the clotting vitamin, the one that helps your blood coagulate properly. But K2 is a completely different player when it comes to cardiovascular health. It doesn't just support heart function indirectly. It actively works to prevent the damage that bad cholesterol, particularly LDL, can leave behind. Here's where it gets interesting. One of the lesser-known consequences of elevated LDL cholesterol is arterial calcification. This is when calcium begins to build up in the walls of your arteries, hardening them and reducing their flexibility. Over time, this increases the risk of hypertension, stroke, and heart attacks. And this process doesn't necessarily depend on how high your cholesterol is right now. It's about how long your arteries have been exposed to oxidized LDL and inflammation. This is where vitamin K2 steps in like a gatekeeper. K2 activates a specific protein called matrix GLA protein, MGP, which acts like a molecular traffic cop. It tells calcium, "You're not allowed in the arteries. Go to the bones instead." Without enough K2, MGP stays inactive, and calcium ends up depositing in the wrong places, particularly in areas where cholesterol damage has already occurred. In other words, K2 helps break the link between LDL and long-term damage by stopping calcium from contributing to plaque buildup. The science behind this is compelling. One long-term observational study in postmenopausal women found that those who consumed the highest amounts of vitamin K2 had a 50% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease compared to those with low intake. That's a massive difference, especially when you consider that cholesterol-lowering drugs often aim for much smaller reductions in risk. And this benefit wasn't tied to a massive drop in cholesterol levels. It was about improving the quality of the arteries themselves, keeping them flexible and free of calcium buildup. When it comes to food sources, K2 is a bit of a hidden gem. Natto, a traditional Japanese dish made from fermented soybeans, is by far the richest source, though it's an acquired taste for many. Other good sources include aged cheeses, egg yolks, butter from grass-fed cows, and some types of fermented dairy. But because dietary intake can be hit or miss, especially in Western diets, many people turn to supplements for consistent levels. -7-Malawian-Quatches, the most bioavailable form of vitamin K2, is often recommended at doses between 100 and 200 micrograms per day. It has a long half-life in the body, meaning it stays active longer and can provide more consistent protection. For best results, vitamin K2 is often paired with vitamin D3, since the two work together to guide calcium into the bones and out of the arteries. D3 increases calcium absorption, while K2 directs that calcium where it's actually needed. One important note, if you're on blood-thinning medications like warfarin, always talk to your doctor before starting vitamin K2 supplements. While K2 doesn't impact clotting like K1, it can still influence vitamin K pathways that may interact with those drugs. So here's your challenge. Pick one or two of these vitamins and add them into your daily routine for the next week, whether it's by eating more salmon and leafy greens or picking up a high-quality supplement. See how you feel, track your energy, and maybe even get your blood checked. Prevention is always more powerful than cure, and when it comes to your heart, every choice counts. Let us know in the comments what you're trying and how it's working for you. Your story might just help someone else start theirs. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more informational videos.